What's going on, everyone? Today, 52% of the S&P 500 closed up in the green, but there was a lot of crazy movement all across the board. We saw Tesla fall by over 6%, Palantir fell by 3.5%, Nvidia, Google, and others were pretty weak as well, while we saw some other big tech stocks like Apple kind of carry the market higher. There is a lot going on in the market right now, and we're set for a pretty action-packed day tomorrow as we have crucial inflation data set to release 1 hour before the market opens. On top of that, we have another Powell testimony, and we have pretty big news going on right now related to chips, AI, the Middle East, and honestly a lot of other things. In today's video, we're going to cover all the news you have to know right now and some great setups to keep on your radar. Towards the end of today's video, we have a very interesting big money trade where the trader is risking $239,000 to make $1.6 million. So definitely stick around for that. But besides that, Tom, let's get right to it.
Yeah, the market opened up quite a bit lower today, down around 602. You can see in pre-market today, it actually touched 602 and bounced off of it and started coming back. And the honorable, the man, the myth, the legend, Jerome Powell actually did speak today, but the market really didn't do much while he was speaking. Now, there was some fluctuation, but it ended up kind of just going flat at the end of the day. So not too much action coming from Powell, but he did indicate that the Feds do not need to rush on their rate cuts. And I know a lot of people are looking for rate cuts in the short term, and he pretty much reiterated what they said at the last FOMC meeting, that they're not going to rush these rate cuts. So just keep that in mind for the short term. He's going to be testifying again tomorrow, and we will talk about that in the short term. But Mike, going back to the heat map for today, it was a pretty, I would say, rough day overall. I know that the SPY closed up in the green technically, but it was pretty flat. Tesla was down over 6%. In my opinion, Nvidia being down in the red was a pretty negative sign. We can look through the tech stocks here. A lot of redness. Palantir down, Google down, CRM down. So I thought that today was a pretty weird day, Mike, and even the larger, I would say more popular growth stocks in the short term are down quite a bit too. Like QUBT, all the quantum stocks were down a lot, like 9 to 10%. SMCI was falling, which reported earnings in after hours. SMR, one of the nuclear stocks, was down today as well. So we're seeing a lot of pullbacks. Like even Big Bear AI couldn't hide from the growth stock pullback today. So pretty weird price action that we're seeing in the short term.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to everyone looking at this key inflation data that's set to release tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens. As we all know, inflation has been one of the most important economic data points over the past few years, and how this data comes in will have a big impact on how the Federal Reserve continues to operate their rate cuts or potentially even hikes going forward. The good news is that tomorrow's inflation data is expected to come in around 2.9%. Which is like the same exact level that it was at previously. But the bad news with this is that if we do see a surprise, like let's say inflation comes in at, I don't know, 3.1%, maybe even higher, and it's been uptrending in a pretty strong way over the past few months, that can like really jumble things right now. So tomorrow will be a pretty big day in that sense.
It really will, and a lot of traders have been fearful of this inflation continuing to rise. I am happy, though, to see that they are expecting it to stay the same, and even on the core inflation rate, they're expecting it to drop by 0.1%. So I think that there's a good hope for tomorrow that as long as it just comes in right as expected, I don't think it's going to do much. But like you said, if it does come in either lower or higher than those expectations, then I think that there's going to be quite a bit of price action in the early morning. And either way, even if it does come in as expected, Mike, like let's be real, it's a huge data point. Everybody is watching this inflation data, so be ready for some breaks. I know SPY is at some pretty key levels and tried to get back towards resistance here around the end of the day today.
Yeah, so follow the money tomorrow. We almost always see big news off of economic data points like this one, so pay attention to the news tomorrow. We should see some pretty good movement on that front, but we also have another Jerome Powell testimony, so what is going on there?
Yeah, he's given the semi-annual monetary policy report to Congress, and he has to give it to the Senate and the House. So tomorrow he will be giving it to the House. So be ready for that. He'll be speaking to the House Financial Services Committee at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 30 minutes after the market opens. So be ready when it's going to be around a 2-hour long event like it was today. Of course, give or take a little bit. Things can go over their time whenever you have testimonies like this, but be ready for more action. I'm sure that they might even bring up some of the inflation data from earlier that morning, right? They could reference it, especially if it rises. I would think that they would reference it quite a bit, as there's going to be a lot of talk and fear surrounding that if it does pop.
Yeah, and speaking of some stock pops, we definitely have to check out Intel because that thing rocketed today. And I'll tell you, Tom, this is something that is pretty rare to see because when you look at Intel's chart, normally it's just nonstop new lows. So what is going on here?
Yeah, this is pretty awesome. So we've been talking about this AI summit for the past couple of days, and we've been saying to watch out for potential headlines and potential stocks that could end up ripping or moving off of this summit. And today there was actually some great news with Donald Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance, where he came out and he pretty much gave a great speech talking about making chips in the United States and the United States being a leader in the chip industry. Now, there was a lot talked about with this whole Intel situation, Mike. They were talking about many things from stopping theft and misuse to manufacturing in the United States and a plethora of other topics. So at the end of the day, there was a lot of positivity for Intel as they are one of the bigger U.S. producers of AI chips and just chips in general. So that was perceived as really good news for Intel, and they ran up over 6% at the close. And in the middle of the day, they were up way more than 6%, Mike. From where they closed yesterday, it was more like a 10 to 11% at the high of day.
And that's huge, especially for a company like Intel. J.D. Vance made it pretty clear that this administration wants to make sure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S. and designed and manufactured in America. So that definitely was pretty good for Intel. Looking at this stock now, I am pretty excited to see how it is moving on the charts right now. I love how it's bouncing off the support around $19 a share, and I also really love how it is actively gaining more and more momentum and also moving up while some of the other, chip stocks that have been running for years at this point are kind of weak. So I think Intel should definitely be kept close on the radar, not only in like a price action sense, but also in a sense where, we do have some like real news and, real things happening in the world to help support, more positivity with Intel. So keep it on the radar.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. This is a pretty crazy big money play with Intel. They're actually still in right now, so that's pretty good to say. And looking at that support that you mentioned, I definitely love the support here. This creates a really good risk-reward scenario, and we've mentioned Intel a lot. You even talked about it last night on your setup, so I gotta give kudos to you. But who's buying this one up, right? This big money play, I think they knew something was going on because there was a pretty good pop, even like just a few days after they bought it. But Mike, overall, Intel starting to come back from the dead. Looking at some of the other chip stocks that you mentioned, like NVIDIA, AMD, maybe even like AVGO, a lot of them have been flat the past few days, right? I'm starting to get a little bit worried that we might see some of this flatness continue because there's been so much negativity in the overall world right now. We're talking about Trump came out today and literally said that the United States will take Gaza. Like, that is a pretty crazy and bold headline right there. Now, of course, I wonder if this will really end up happening or not, but there were so many headlines and developments with this today, and I'm starting to get a little bit fearful in the short term that this could end up bringing in a lot of volatility into the market. Like, we look at the SPY or even the SPX. We've been kind of downtrending, and there's been this trend of lower highs starting to happen, and all this bad news and talk with Gaza doesn't help the situation or the cause any, that's for sure.
Not at all. Like, there is a lot going on right now, and it's going to continue to make for some, like, intense movement in the market. When you have Trump, like, really doubling down on, the fact that he wants to take Gaza and hold it and cherish it, as he said. Of course, that brings upon some problems. Of course, the tariff situation with the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum that just went into effect yesterday. That also adds some spice to the mix. And on top of that, there's just a lot of other things like just intensifying right now in the market in general. Like you mentioned, we do have some pretty heavy resistance overhead on SPY, and looking more closely at SPY, what would you say are like the key levels going into tomorrow, and what should we pay attention to as we look at the SPY chart now?
Yeah, yesterday we really talked about that double top up around 605.40 to 605.50 and even like right around $605. And today that ended up holding up really well as resistance in the middle of the day with SPY. I had a lot of trouble breaking out above this level. And even when it did, it ran up pretty close to the next resistance at 606 and then just sold right back off. So I think for tomorrow, breaking above this next resistance at 606 is going to be very, very key. But what we really need to see develop with the SPY is this breakout above 608 in the short term. For bulls, we need to get out of this trend of lower highs. It just keeps forming and the SPY keeps playing within this. So until we start to see that like market structure really change in that sense, I'm still going to kind of stick to the bear side, especially with all this news coming in. But for tomorrow, this resistance, you can see these green arrows on the left side of your screen marking that 606 resistance where there was a lot of hits in the short term.
And I don't think that should be ignored because as SPY continuously tests these levels but gets rejected, what that's ultimately showing is that, sellers are coming in at this level, and we keep having more and more buying pressure, resulting in a retest, but it's not strong enough to result in like a true breakout. And I think that definitely says something, and it should not be ignored. How tomorrow's inflation data comes out will be important because it will be a boost of momentum. If we gain enough strength to break through these overhead resistance levels, that could be a great sign, especially if big tech stocks follow along with that move. At the same time, if the market does not have enough strength to truly break out, I do think that you should definitely follow the money and adjust with the trend as it's changing. But either way, we should get some pretty good momentum tomorrow, and I will keep a close eye on all of the levels you listed. But another thing that we definitely have to bring up, Tom, is some historical market stats. Right now, we are in the third year of the bull market, and historically speaking, this is not the strongest part of the uptrend. We could see in year one, the bull market's pretty strong. Same goes for year two. But as we get to that third year, things start to slow down a little bit, as expected, because the market can't just go full rocket mode forever. And this isn't something that should necessarily be feared either, but rather just adapted to. But I thought this was very interesting, and I really like how, we can look at like historical trends and see how the market has acted in different stages of the overall trend that it's in.
Yeah, this was some great data to find, and to see that the market in the third year of the bull run really consolidates and is kind of more flat than anything is definitely interesting. And I did notice that on this data, Mike, especially like the first half of the year seems really slow, and then kind of like around like the mid to end of the year is like where we start to see it pick up a little bit more. But so far, 2025 has been pretty awesome. We've been seeing SPY move higher, but I feel like that there has been we've gotten into now this spot or situation where we're seeing the market get stuck, right? And that's what's worrying me, is that we're kind of seeing it play out in a very volatile way, but we're just not getting that good breakout potential, like, for example, like we would have gotten in year one or year two of like a good bull run, right?
Yeah, and then like another thing to keep in mind is that if we look at the December low break indicator, basically, historically speaking, whenever we see the market break below December's low in Q1, that is normally a pretty rough sign going forward, and that is what happened this year, unfortunately. We could see right here is every instance when the market breaks below December's low and what the future returns look like. On average, the market actually finishes red in these situations. So I think this is something that definitely says a lot, because normally when you look at almost any market statistic, it will always be bullish and then, bullish a decent amount because the market just normally increases. But when we have a stat like this, I think it says a lot, because not only are the returns negative, but it also has I can understand why this ends up happening because Q1 really sets the tone for the year, and especially when the market has been uptrending for 2 years at this point in like a very strong way. If we do see more continued weakness, it can spur some more profit taking.
Yeah, it definitely can. This is a pretty worrying statistic to me. Of course, there's other market statistics and data that might suggest uptrend this year, but this one definitely is one that does worry me, Mike. Like you said, most are kind of skewed to the upside, given that the market normally rises. And to see like that the average move is red here with this data, that's a pretty rough thing to see. So I'll tell you what, in 2026, I'm definitely not going to be looking for a Q1 break. That's for sure of the December low. And it didn't break by like a ton or anything, but it definitely is something to watch out for. I was kind of going back on the daily chart of SPY, Mike, and I was like, did it really break December's low? Because I was like, no way. And I was like, oh my gosh, for like one day it did. But yeah, it did. You know, get this stat done, and the data did play out.
Yep, so good stuff there. But Tom, we also have a pretty loaded earnings lineup for the week. SMCI, Upstart, DoorDash, and Lyft all reported after the bell today. And we have VRT, Reddit, AppLovin, Robinhood, Datadog, Coinbase, DraftKings, and many other stocks on the schedule for the week.
I really can't wait for DraftKings later in the week, given a lot of the sports betting talk and everything like that with the Super Bowl, of course. And then Barrick Gold will be very interesting as well, I think. Ticker symbol GOLD tomorrow before the market opens. This is going to be huge, Mike, because as we know, gold has been flying up in the short term. And, you know, if they have a positive report, it could maybe be exactly what GOLD needs to break above this solid resistance around $17.50, where we're starting to see it peak out in the short term. Hopefully we don't see it come in negative and then it runs back towards support. I would much rather be on the side of like a good breakout there, but definitely a good gold stock to keep your eyes on.
There we go. All right, Tom. Well, let's get right into some setups and predictions then. And a stock that is definitely on my radar right now is XLE. This ETF follows energy stocks, and it had a pretty good day today, and we have been seeing a decent uptrend in the short term, especially as tensions are rising in the Middle East. Like we touched on, Trump has been pretty vocal about his plans for Gaza, and not too many people are happy about that. This can definitely increase tensions in the Middle East and have a positive impact on the price of oil. So XLE follows energy stocks, and for that reason, it has a lot to gain if the price of oil moves up in a major way. So for that reason, XLE is definitely on my bullish radar, and stick with us because today's big money trade is also tied to this, and you don't want to miss it.
Yeah, these crazy moves are insane in the short term with energy and a lot of the oil stocks. I'll definitely have my eyes on XLE and especially a lot of these headlines like with Trump and everything with Gaza and the Middle East. I really cannot believe some of the headlines that we're seeing right now. And with my first play, I'm looking at a stock that can do pretty well whenever the market is kind of shaky, like with what we're seeing, and that is Kraft Heinz, ticker symbol KHC. KHC is in a pretty big downtrend on the daily chart overall, and you can tell how there's been a lot of hits on the top of this trend and a lot of hits on the bottom. It's actually pretty consistent, and as we get down towards the bottom of this trend and support around $28, I'm watching for a bit of support bounce over the next couple of weeks. This stock is, like I said, it has a good negative correlation to the SPY, so it doesn't really follow the SPY as much as like many other stocks would, and it's starting to bounce and actually hold support in a pretty good way in the short term. So I'm just going to keep watching for a nice move over the next few days and few weeks. It's not something necessarily for tomorrow, but it is something that you could maybe look at as a swing play, a play with shares, or even just wait for the intraday opportunities, of course.
All right, sounds good there. And another stock that is close on watch is TEM. So this is one of Nancy Pelosi's crazy AI plays that has been in full rocket mode lately, and I'm actually bearish on this one. So it's always scary going against Nancy, but basically TEM has been crushing it ever since her position was announced, and it retested its all-time high today, right around like that $78.50 area, which has been an area of extreme resistance ever since August of last year. Basically, the stock was moving with a ton of great momentum to start the day, but once it hit this 78.50 level, that was like a brick wall of resistance, and it came like tumbling back down. So I do not like the price action that we saw today, and this sort of price action really represents just like urgent selling pressure and a quick to flip supply and demand dynamic. So for that reason, as well as the fact that the stock is pretty overextended, it's definitely on my bearish radar. Understand that this stock moves a ton in both directions. And another thing that I do like about it is that if we go to a daily chart, we can see that when it moves up in like a very strong, crazy way, but also when it pulls back, as it has twice off of this resistance level, it comes tumbling down pretty hard. So it's definitely on my bearish radar, but I wouldn't be surprised if this trade took a couple days to play out.
Yeah, a lot of traders are talking about this resistance on Tempest, and they were trying to sell out kind of at the top today. I was definitely interested myself in this resistance, Mike. I will keep my eyes on Tempest to the downside. With my next setup, I'm looking at Tesla to the downside as well, and I'm really watching this big support in the short term, right around $325. So today, that's pretty much the low of day on Tesla. It got pretty close to that within about 20 cents. And we can see on Bookmap that there's about 109,000 shares stacked up there right before the market closed. So if we see a 325 breakdown, I'll be watching for a continuation lower down towards the 320 next area of support. There could be like a good $5 profit target range there that you could try to play. But either way, I am watching for that buy wall to end up giving out, Mike. There's been a lot of selling pressure on Tesla in the short term, and whenever I look at the daily chart specifically, it's starting to turn over in a pretty massive way, and I'm sure a lot of traders are going to start looking for like gaps to start filling, and I know it's pretty crazy to say, but Tesla was just at close to $500 just like a few weeks ago. Now it's at $328. That's a pretty big drop.
Seriously, and I will have a very close eye on that 325 level that you showed on Bookmap. If that gives out, that'll say quite a bit, and then that $320 level is also something to keep on the radar. I love to see this X-ray vision like this, and if you guys haven't already used Bookmap, definitely check it out. It'll be that first link in the description in the comments down below. It shows you exactly where buyers and sellers are stacked up, and there's basically no other software out there like it. If you haven't used it already, very strongly consider trying it out. It's a great tool to have in your trading arsenal. But besides that, Tom, we are all clear for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have IONQ to the downside.
Yeah, IONQ is pretty rough here. A lot of the growth stocks were down today quite a bit. If IONQ breaks under its recent low right around 37.50, then keep watching it down.
All right, with the next one, we have AI also to the downside.
Yeah, poor AI here. Pretty bad pullback. They're right around $32. So if we see a $32 break, then keep watching it down as well.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Teladoc to the upside.
Poor Teladoc here today, Mike. They were down 5%, but what we're seeing is a lot of growth stocks falling off here. So what I'm actually watching for with Teladoc is a separate dynamic. If we actually do see Teladoc hold the 1270 support and actually re-break back above $13, then I'm going to be watching this one back to the upside. There was a lot of selling pressure today, and sometimes following these massive sell-offs, you do see like slight pops back to the upside, and this was a play that we were watching up yesterday, so I wanted to hit on it again today and really watch some of these supports coming up.
All right, sounds good. So we have Teladoc on watch for a potential move higher, and then we have AI and IONQ on watch for a potential move lower. These three stocks are momentum plays, so they move quick, and you have to adjust with the trend changes as they happen. As always, have stop losses. Protect yourself. Never enter a trade without a stop loss, and it is especially important for strong moving stocks like these ones. So keep them close on watch. But besides that, Tom, let's jump right into today's big money trade. And today, we are looking at ticker symbol XOM. So ExxonMobil, another oil slash energy related stock. And the big money today put $239,000 into the 113 strike calls that expire very soon on February 21st of 2025. So this is a trade that expires next week for my advanced traders out there. This is technically a call debit spread where they also shorted the 117 strike calls. But essentially what's happening here is the big money is risking $239,000 to make $1.6 million. This trade has a lot to gain in the event ExxonMobil makes a big move to the upside. Naturally, this trade is a higher risk trade given the strike price and ultra short expiration. The news in the Middle East with tensions rising and Trump's aggressive Gaza statements definitely play into this. Looking at ExxonMobil right now, it had a pretty good day today. It has been holding support strongly and making higher lows, so I definitely think this is one to keep on the radar.
Yeah, me too. And I will say the technical setup on Exxon and Mobil is pretty insane. I mean, whenever you zoom out on the daily chart, the overall uptrend that has been forming on this one is very consistent, where the bounces have been very spot on. And once again, we're seeing a perfect trend bounce. We're seeing a good support hold, and we're seeing an active catalyst with this stock. So I really like this one. The risk reward ratio could maybe be a little bit better. It's a little bit off of that lower area of support. If we were gonna try to target it up, maybe something like 120 over the next few months. But keep in mind that this one doesn't have a ton of time to it, so they're really looking at a short-term play here. So it's gonna be more of like a scalp, where I think, Mike, they're looking for this recent high to give out around like 112.90 to 113. And if we see that happen, these 113 calls should do very, very well over the next week or so. Just realize that this one doesn't have the amount of time as a lot of the big money plays that we normally do cover and look at.
And that's the big thing that makes this one risky, is because the move has to happen very soon. And while that, kind of sucks, the good news is that, if it does happen, it will pay out very well. I think the biggest component that will, factor into this trade is how much attention gets brought up related to these Middle East tensions. If we continue to hear about this in the news and we continue to see oil prices rise and ExxonMobil putting pressure on its highs, I think that's where a lot of the opportunity will come into play. So either way, keep a close eye on this one going forward. It has potential, but it is definitely high risk, high reward. But before we continue on, we have to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Soy Saucy, who had his first $1,000 trade today with NVIDIA call options. So huge shout out to you, Soy Saucy. Keep up the great work going forward, and hopefully we see many more screenshots like this one from you in the future. We saw some great Apple trades as well. So great work there, and keep on rolling. If you guys are new to the channel, consider obliterating that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. We post all the most important news, information, chart setups, earnings, charts you would have never seen before, like the year 3 historical data, as well as the December low statistics, plus big money trades, and basically everything you could need. So definitely consider obliterating that subscribe button. And again, if you guys have not used Bookmap already, definitely check it out. It's one of the best trading tools out there. And if you have not used it before, there's even more to gain. You can save if you use the link in the description in the comments down below. StockedUp viewers do save with that link. Besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it tomorrow.